And so when I began to not just look at a child for the behaviors that I'm observing or from the apparent lack of executive functioning skills or long-term memory, when I'm not looking at it from the perspective of a problem or of symptoms, I look back to what does this nervous system need in order to thrive.
Today, I'm joined by Dr. Niki Elliott, an educator, author, and the director of the Center for Embodied Equity and Neurodiversity at the University of San Diego. With over 30 years of experience, Dr. Nikki brings deep expertise in educational neuroscience, mindfulness, and polyvagal-informed learning. She is the founder of the Mindful Leaders Project, a district-wide initiative helping educators and mental health professionals foster heart-centered, healing-focused connections with children and families. Her work is grounded, transformative, and deeply human. And beyond that, she's a mom of 6 and a self-described lover of humanity. Welcome to Wired for Connection, a Polyvagal podcast. I am your host, and my name is Travis. I guess, can you just share a bit about your background of how did you land in the world of education and what brought you there to begin with?
So I would say that every job I've ever had has been in the field of education. So even as a high school student, my first jobs were helping to work with summer camps. And then in college, I was an assistant teacher at Berkeley High School, supporting children who were in continuation programs and in special ed. So even from the very beginning of my work inside of schools, I've always been in the awesome position of being able to provide care and mentorship for children who are very bright, but who the traditional schooling system has pretty much written off for one reason or another. And, always being told, watch out for that one, or that one doesn't care about learning. So they, even in an introduction to a student, is coming with the labels and the reasons you should withhold care or minimize expectations. And consistently, because I have the feeling of, I like to let people sink their own boat with me, right? So if I get to know you and get to care for you and get to see who you are and what makes you tick, consistently with those same children that I would be introduced to with a negative label or a set of assumptions, I would come up with a different opinion about them. And so even from my undergrad experience at UC Berkeley, that drove me to just start examining what are the other factors that go into how we see students, how we label them, how we route who gets opportunity and mentorship and care, and who gets written off into the, or fed, as I would say, into the school to prison pipeline or otherwise. And so that kind of pushed my interest in, once I graduated from UC Berkeley, I got a scholarship to Columbia University at the Teachers College. And I wanted to explore what were those factors in urban education that shift the educational outcomes for students who are capable and intelligent, and why do their life outcomes not show that potential? So from there, I taught 4th and 5th grade in Teaneck, New Jersey. Same thing again, where the veteran teachers were able to cherry pick the students that they did or did not want. And as a beginning teacher, my class was loaded with what others perceived as undesirable students. Again, very bright students, not all children of color, but a significant percentage of them, with demonstration of behaviors that made it shadow the intelligence, but the brilliance was there shining. And so, Travis, from that point, it has just been my whole entire life, creating educational systems, creating programs, helping build charter schools, and now designing curriculum that help us understand the term neurodiverse, neurodivergent didn't exist when I first started teaching over 30 years ago.
Right.
But now we understand complexities within brilliance. And it's my love to help teachers, to help all child serving professionals and caregivers understand these neurodiverse students from a different perspective that allows us to support where they are experiencing challenge, but not allow us to ignore or to dim the genius that they all have.
I love that. I mean, it hits home for me because my eldest is neurodiverse. It's funny. My wife was a fourth grade. She's still a teacher, but she stays home and helps teach. But was fourth grade, so I was like, oh, fourth grade, yeah. I remember many nights my wife grading papers, like assignments in our home apartment back in the day. And the neurodiverse, hearing you say that reminds me, and this is, I think, where I want to go next, is that I think there is a lot of mislabeling or misunderstanding, and they get that, like you said, mislabeled as the problem kid or behavioral, and then we miss. I love they said the brilliance that is there because they're not understood, or how do we reach these kids, and they get kind of pushed aside, or maybe they become the problem kid, or they're in detention, and it's like when actually we're not reaching them the way they need us to, and that's something that I've had to learn with a neurodiverse son is just it's just thinking differently, and how do I reach where he's at, because it's different, and I got to understand him, how he thinks, how he ticks, what speaks to him, versus me try to fit him into my mold. And I think I found that in the education system. So I'm wondering with the education system that you're doing, because it sounds like you found some rigidity there, or some things that were maybe working and things that were not working for these kiddos, and then decided to do your own thing and create curriculum. So I guess what were some themes that you noticed from some of these kiddos in terms of like safety, in terms of connection, of terms of what were they going through, and maybe why they couldn't meet expectation or show up in a way to see their brilliance?
So it's a few things that have emerged, and it is a big part of why polyvagal theory is so prominent, in my work and in the frameworks that I use. What I have learned is that seeing a child, a neurodivergent child, from a physiological or from a nervous system framework or perspective was the game changer in my approach to understanding them. My own children, a few of them are neurodiverse as well.
Yeah.
But also in helping adults understand what the children need. And so when I began to not just look at a child for the behaviors that I'm observing, or from the apparent lack of executive functioning skills or long-term memory, when I'm not looking at it from the perspective of a problem or of symptoms, I look back to what does this nervous system need in order to thrive. And so once I started digging into the research about the needs of neurodivergent learners, I started seeing low vagal tone, right? So some of the research is showing that by nature of the symptoms for some students that are neurodiverse, whether that be autism, ADHD, or those who have neurological changes due to trauma, heightened sensory sensitivities are a part of that, right? Yeah. So that sense of felt safety is not just in the relational aspect of the adult. Felt safety is also being registered with the environment. And so having a lot of teachers understand that from a sensory perspective, the student is not being able to access a settled nervous system state to learn because they can see the flickering and the fluorescent lights in the room. They can hear the low tones. One thing that really got me when I really dived into polyvagal theory was some of Dr. Porges's teaching that people who have a higher trauma score have relaxed inner ear muscles that make it easier for them to hear the low tones in an environment, because in the wild, or in evolution, from an evolutionary perspective, that makes it better for you to detect the sound of the predator coming from further and further away.
Right.
But if your ears are primed to register low tones more than in a classroom environment, that means you're hypersensitive to the HVAC system, to the projector, to the sounds of students sweeping chairs around the floor, right? Then that challenges your ability to hear the higher pitch frequencies of the human voice. Now that makes it harder for you to process the teacher. And then again, if you have teachers that are giving constant verbal instructions and verbal lectures without pauses for processing, without visual images to go along with the mapping of what is being asked, now you're setting up psychological state of alarm, right? Yeah. So again, it's been really great to expand this idea of safety, that it's not just whether or not you're smiling at me when I enter the door. There are a lot of other cues in an environment that may be keeping a neurodivergent person from being able to register a settled nervous system state that sets them up for learning.
Yeah.
So even, one thing I learned, I studied with Dr. Brown and Gerbar, breath, body, mind. One thing Dr. Brown taught was that clockwise spinning in the northern hemisphere activates the vagus nerve. So that will help us settle, to get the body ready into that state of alert relaxation for learning. But every time we have a child on the autism spectrum, a child with ADHD, spinning, 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 we say stop.
Right.
And so without awareness, we're interrupting what their nervous system might innately have them do to try to create a state of physiological settledness in the body so that they can access learning. But we interrupt it with what we think our social norms are. And then we end up co-escalating rather than co-regulating.
Oh, man.
So a big part of my work is like, how do we really do our best job of understanding the physiology of neurodivergent people and then understand all the ways we contradict that, the way we interrupt it, the way we judge it, shame it, and then create spaces where they're physically not able to do the thing that we are demanding that they do.
Yeah.
So that's just one example. I see safety far beyond just the person-to-person connection as it relates to neurodiverse people.
Yeah. No, it just makes me think. You're right. It isn't just, while it is person to person, absolutely, but in the environment is significant because we think of where are these, kids, teens, adults spending most of their time. How is the environment set up? Is it set up to, I don't even like the word accommodate, but actually facilitate growth, productivity, connection, safety, allowing for, use the spinning, the stimming, right, to regulate. And I've learned all this from having a neurodiverse son, is that, oh yeah, that's him trying to ground himself or using body to move around, bounce around. And if someone says, if a teacher's unaware or adult or even me who says stop, hey, sit still, without the awareness, in a way we're impeding the natural bodily movement of physiology of trying to ground from a polyvagal perspective. And I love that was the big breakthrough. And so you found this, wow, something's changing. We need to look at the environment. We need to start to adapt and teach and understand. And so what are some things since then that you have been able to do or help generate around environmental awareness or teaching professors, teachers, educators, parents on, hey, we need to understand the physiology of the nervous system, not just you to me, but in the spaces they exist?
So I built a curriculum called the Heart-Centered Connection. So it's actually it has evolved into a 30-hour professional certificate program that we offer here through the University of San Diego. And so it's not just for classroom teachers, it's for people who work at the YMCA, summer camp, sports coaches, people who teach art programs, foster parents, people who have great intention of being inclusive and creating what we refer to as safe spaces for children, but they've never been taught to understand the needs of neurodiverse children. And so because of that, when they see these behaviors, they're constantly saying, sorry, I wasn't trained to support this. Your kid can't be here. And then we have a world of exclusion and social isolation, for our neurodiverse learners. So as it relates to environment, one of the pillars of that curriculum is called Neuro-Inclusive spaces. And so we actually map all 8 senses and help the providers actually look at their own nervous system sensitivities. What's your sensitivity to light, to sound, to touch, to taste, to your vestibular sense of balance, your interoception sense of your inner awareness? What are your strengths? What are your challenges? What are your needs? It really starts to help adults see the extent to which we set up classrooms, learning spaces, therapy spaces, homes for what our nervous systems need to feel a sense of settledness. So asking those adults to now back up and then map the sensory needs of the children in the space, whether they're diagnosed or not, right? So it's just not just only for the children who have a diagnosis.
Right.
and then give those children voice to say how their nervous systems experience the physical spaces that are created has been a game changer for
Wow.
many of the educators that I mentor and train, because they're like, oh, I didn't realize how many students feel really stressed by the fluorescent lights. So now they're able to put cloth filters on the lights to soften the light. They're able to emphasize more natural lighting. I work in not many, but some schools where the teachers are actually instructed to put butcher paper over the windows to cover the windows. In certain cases, it's been told because having the children look out of the window is distracting. Now, we know the research shows that view of nature is actually soothing to the nervous system.
Sure.
But they are told to cover the windows because it keeps the children from focusing because they're looking outside. So again, we have so many beliefs and practices that go against what nervous systems need to really settle. And then the second thing, because of the concerns around active shooter drills, I've worked in school districts where the teachers are told to cover the windows in case of an active shooter. A person could not look in the window and see that their children. Now that 0.00001% chance is blocking a child's ability on a daily basis of having access to natural light and a view of nature that can support nervous system regulation. So it's such a shame in our society that we have to think about safety in those ways. But again, they've made changes to put spinning chairs in the classrooms. So now children on the spectrum or children who have that kind of vestibular sensory need can rock in a chair, can spin in a chair, and it's normalized in the space. It's not a punishment. It's not a privilege. It's just a chair that meets a need. And if you have the need, sit in this chair. So these kind of alternate seatings, the bringing in of weighted blankets and things. So you're not teasing a child that they have a blanket in class, or squishy things that provide the sensory experience that they need to settle. But when it's normalized, I've seen children as young as second grade be able to understand what their peers need in order to have a settled nervous system. The teacher gives the child autonomy and agency to name what they need and to move toward it as they need it. We've seen significant reductions in the need for in-class behavioral support, as well as out-of-class expository discipline for our neurodiverse children who have sensitive nervous systems. And all of that together goes into enhancing their perception of psychological and physical safety in the learning space. Which improves outcomes for everybody, I would say.
Yeah, and with this foundation of the awareness of the nervous system, which, like you said, is such a game changer, and it's been a game changer for me professionally and personally. Like, just it's something you kind of knew. I felt like I knew it, like, to a degree, but then I read it, I'm like, oh, that's what this is. Oh, this makes so much sense. I intuitively had an awareness, but now of course, you start deep diving into this stuff, and as I do, and it sounds like you do too, you start to realize, whoa, like this, it's really the foundation of everything. And it starts to give you a total paradigm shift, perspective shift, which is non-pathologizing. Even I saw my own reactions of like, oh, that's what I'm stuck in this state, or conflict with a spouse or with kids. And you start to just see everything from this total shift of perspective. And so with that, going to now education and how the education system is created, for better or for worse, seeing how it hasn't historically been so geared towards neurodiverse population to help them succeed. And so the fight you're doing, or the work you're doing, is, I think, so vitally important, because it speaks home to my own personal life. I'm like, yes, we need more of this. But I'm wondering, a couple of questions I'm thinking of is, what is one of the big challenges and or barriers, because you're doing something, and I found some other systems that are creating something with this awareness with polyvagal theory to help really not just neurodiverse, but all folks, right? But what are some of the challenges, barriers that you're facing now in your line of work now in 2025 of getting this out there, of educating, of spreading this? Like, where are you hitting some roadblocks?
I would have to say, actually, in this season, there is a tremendous opening and receptivity that may not have been there, particularly pre-pandemic, let's say, because to your point that this conversation is not just about neurodiverse learners. we're seeing high escalations in behavior, low self-regulation capacity, low vagal tone for students of all abilities in the schools, and the teachers themselves are extremely stressed and not able to manage themselves enough to provide another layer of support for children.
Yeah.
So because what has previously been promoted in schools in terms of pro-social behavior support or restorative justice, these things are not meeting the present need. Schools are desperate right now because what's happening is more and more children are being pushed out to be referred for special education simply for behavior, which was where we started with this conversation, not because there is limited cognitive capacity. That becomes extremely cost prohibitive for school districts. So they are, and then when we bring this work and we say, here's the science that's explaining what's happening with nervous systems, and here's what is needed from the environment, here's what's needed in terms of co-regulation from the adult nervous system capacity, right? So there's actually more work than I can take on right now with schools that are because they want to apply the science to it. Right. So they're saying, if you can show me the why, and that's kind of what Polyvagal does in a degree within the larger umbrella of applied educational neuroscience, is showing the why is it happening this way. And then we can now assess our practices against this science to go, is this best practice? So like you have restorative justice or some kinds of pro-social behavior support is full of words. Full of a lot of talking. Now, if we understand that in a mobilized state, a child is offline, then how does that match with a behavior technique that's telling you to do a whole bunch of verbal processing with a child?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So that's where the receptivity is coming in because people are going, oh, I did that when I didn't know, to stop them from spinning. Well, if that's helping them activate the vagus nerve and create a state of settledness, how can we bring that in to an option for the child and not judge it as willful misbehavior, but as a self-soothing technique that's allowing them to anchor to get to the learning that you're asking for. So it's, I think people are ready for some of the reconditioning and retraining that we all need to do, because the way we went through school and did school is not what's going to work for these children today. And I don't think it worked back then because that's when we had such high dropout rates, right?
Yeah.
But now there's an expectation that every child is going to college, not that some are going to go and do work in the fields or in the national forest or jobs that don't require you to sit still all day long and not be able to move your body and to meet your physical needs as. So it's I'm seeing a receptivity, and I think the places where we get the pushback are places where some of your really high competitive environments where parents are more quick to medicate their children to be able to comply with what the environments are requiring, like where they're requesting it even before official diagnosis has been made because they want their child to be perceived as competitive. There, when we're asking for the kind of modifications and adjustments to the environment that make the environments better for nervous systems, they perceive that as a watering down of the curriculum or making children weaker or less competitive. So it's unfortunate because we do see a lot of mental health breakdowns in those environments with children that are under that kind of pressure without the kind of support that they really need.
Yeah. Well, it's really exciting to hear. There's a lot more receptivity. And I know there's a lot of work that needs to be done because it's if you think of all of the U.S., it's like where are those pockets and who's receptive and who's not receptive. And I love to hear that, hey, there's too much work for me, that's amazing to hear that there's too much to keep up with the demand. So it sounds like there's some shifts happening here, at least maybe in San Diego County or
all up through California. And we're getting requests in other states as well. But, the reputation for this particular work has been built in my home state here. But we are in the process now of training other educators and counselors to be facilitators of the work so that
Wow.
more trainings can happen, beyond my schedule. So very excited about that.
Yeah.
But I definitely think this applied educational neuroscience lens, sitting side by side with the understanding of polyvagal theory, helping adults understand their own nervous systems, helping educators understand how, because we're always concerned with the child's ACE score, the child's trauma score, right? So
Right.
what's the child's ACE? And my perspective as a teacher educator, it's none of your business. It's not our
Mhm.
business to collect a child's ACE score or to be trying to categorize their trauma.
Mm.
Our job is to run every classroom environment as if every child had a high ACE score.
Mm.
So if we apply trauma-informed practices as par for the course, as foundational ways that we teach, we'll meet the needs. And as exceptional needs rise up, we can find out what those
Mm.
are. But I find
Yeah.
that having adults understand their own ACE score,
Mhm.
understanding how their own attachment style, how their own curriculum and instruction style, understanding how their own discipline styles are impacted by how their nervous system has been primed to survive. It
Mm.
shows up in the classroom. So you can see teachers with high punitive discipline, high needs for rigid control, teachers who have a difficult time being touched, right? So some
Mm.
people's trauma responses is that they are touch averse now because of
Mm.
what they've been through. But now in their role as an educator or a caregiver, you've got babies, second
Mm.
graders, third graders who are reaching out for hugs and touch in order to
Yeah.
regulate and settle their nervous system, but the adult is pushing them away
Yeah.
because of their own aversion to touch. And now you've got co-escalation rather than co-regulation.
Yeah. And in a
So,
way, it even sounds like co-escalation. It's not even a logical response. It's their own survival nervous system taking over of like as an adult, like, because they, especially if they're unaware of that, they're getting dysregulated, going to their way of surviving and coping, which then creates this kind of like boom, 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 boom. Now we're having a demand or withdraw or be punitive or
right,
something because we don't know what else
right.
to do. Yeah.
Right. And because the adult has the power position, they can punish the child for not complying or
Right.
regulating, but the adult is not being held accountable for how
Mm.
their limited regulating capacity, self-soothing capacity created the behavior they're punishing now.
Right.
And that just gets compounded when we're working with neurodiverse children that have exceptional needs or lower vagal tone. We need the adult to have more capacity.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so helping adults understand that from that perspective has been a game changer in supporting adults and building more vagal tone, more capacity through mind body practices. We have a research project now where some of the teachers we work with have been utilizing the Safe and Sound protocol.
Mm.
We're tracking heart rate variability to see if improvements in vagal tone for teachers can correlate toward higher positive classroom climate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And teachers less reactivity to children who have exceptional needs. So I'm really proud of the work. I mean, we don't have all the answers with it, but we do have the data that we've collected at some of the schools that we've worked with, where the teachers are implementing this work. We've seen in one school a 36% reduction in expulsions, with teachers really being able to be more finely attuned to whether the behaviors they're observing in children are truly a sign of willful misbehavior or whether they're a function of the symptom of their condition. And then what other practices, strategies, connections are able to be employed in that moment to support co-regulation. So that has been a consistent finding in the schools where the work has been implemented. And fewer referrals, reduction in referrals to special ed.
Wow. And I think what I'm hearing is this kind of holistic, integrative approach. It's not just the kids or the teens, it's the teachers, it's the staff, it's the practitioners, it's the parents, and the environment. Because I agree, if as a parent or an educator not aware of my own nervous system, then I'm going to, especially going based on polyvagal theory, like you said, I'm going to cause dysregulation or more. It's just going to create a hot mess, if you will, to keep it simple, of just everyone's kind of stuck in a dysregulated state. But I might tell myself if I'm unaware of this that I'm doing the right thing, or like this is it because this is what I know. And And so I really hear this really integrative, holistic approach of helping everybody with education, with awareness, and then embodying and kind of actually doing something different and creating spaces environmentally as well as within ourselves to have this awareness to work together. And when we have that awareness, we could flow. And so I'm wondering, if you had your way, if Dr. Nikki could wave a wand, or something else, or sprinkle dust or something. What is like the 2 or 3 things that, like, if this could just be changed in the education system for felt safety, for growth, for all these things, what would I do? What would be that? What would be those 2 or 3 things?
So number one, I'm on a mission now in terms of somatics in schools, right? And so they need to be trauma informed, mind-body practices. I see a lot of mindfulness practices that are being brought into schools. I see a weaponization of mindfulness as a way of controlling bodies, especially as it relates to mindfulness being brought into communities of color, where mindfulness is going to be the thing that controls your behavior and controls your body. So that is a lot of layered conversations into that. But to have it as a form of wellness, not, okay, you're not behaving well, go over in the corner and breathe. And when you get yourself together, then you can earn your spot back into community. So now people feel mindfulness is a punishment. It's a gentle punishment, right? It doesn't feel like a proactive wellness practice that we all engage in as a community, right? So otherwise I'll go into classrooms and I have seen teachers press play on a mindfulness app, and the expectation is that the children participate in it, but the teacher's taking attendance. So the message that gives is, this is for you, but it doesn't apply to me. So again, whole communities that understand nervous system state and where it just is part of the culture. Just like you go out and you see a group of Chinese practitioners in community every morning, we're out doing Tai Chi or Qigong together, right? So it is a communal practice that we are building and harmonizing the communal nervous system. Or in other indigenous practices, we drum together, we dance together. Those are vagus nerve activating, settling practices that a community does together. It's not your individual job to go fix yourself. We proactively engage in wellness and co-regulating practices that bind us as a community. So then that's where I say community shows up as medicine. So I would love to see schools take nervous system support. It's not just one for PE, because not everybody has PE, and as a communal practice within school communities, and that all counselors have somatic approaches to their therapy. So anytime a child is being brought out for support, that it has a mind-body connection, not just talk or, here, write a story about why you did what you did, bringing that awareness through. I would love to see more collaboration versus competition in schools, because we talk about another form of safety is the psychological threat of the way instruction is designed. Right. So if I teach with the brain and nervous system in mind, then I'm aware of how rituals in a classroom signal the amygdala to quiet and help create that psychological safety. How every time I'm tasked with a new topic, that's an amygdala activation, right? So how do I build felt safety in the way I scaffold new learning? Again, this is the whole physiological rationale for culturally responsive teaching. So like we have this whole anti-DEI and we want to be anti-woke and all the things that's going on right now. But the thing of the matter is, when you're working with children from different cultural backgrounds and communities, and you're only teaching through one cultural frame, you're asking new information to be hooked on to where you're lacking the existing scaffolding of pre-existing knowledge of the culture.
Yeah.
So when we have culturally connected teaching, or teaching that's connected to the children's community, you're building new knowledge on top of their awareness of their world. as it is for them. Now you make your content Velcro stickier so
Hmm.
you can keep quieting the amygdala's activation to the unfamiliar by
Yeah.
hooking it to the familiar. So
Yeah. Yeah.
again, you got to think every angle from the relational perspective, from the environmental perspective, from the instructional perspective. How are we anchoring safety? And it's not about being safe, it's safe enough,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because at the same time, I see too much of this bubble wrapping of children in our
Mm.
culture where we're trying to problem solve ahead for everything. We need to make them safe. Don't let them fall off the slide. We need to make them safe. Don't let them figure out their own arguments. You got parents on the playground interceding in every disagreement between children,
Yeah.
solving every problem. And then when they're getting to college, they're ready to jump off the roof of the parking structure because they got to be.
Yeah.
Because everything has been made so safe, so protected. We got parents calling the schools, arguing with the deans. My parents didn't even know what a dean was when I was in college. I'm first generation college student. There was nobody coming to save me if I failed a test. These
Yeah.
parents are literally calling the schools, arguing with professors about grades,
Yeah.
right? So then the minute a child who's been bubble wrapped that way in the name of safety,
Mm.
the minute their nervous system gets stressed with a challenge that they can't immediately solve, they're falling apart.
Yep.
And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, I would even venture to say, what if we can't promise people safety? It's just safe enough.
Mm-hmm.
But the goal is not to feel safe all the time. The goal is to build nervous system flexibility
Yeah.
that can handle challenges, that can handle threat, that can handle feeling
Mm.
disrespected or marginalized or get rejected for a date. So you're not
Yeah.
blowing up the place because somebody didn't accept your invitation for a date,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That you have that bounce back ability and that capacity to be fully mobilized and
Mm.
reset, to be fully immobilized and shut down with fear, but to reset and to know you have that bounce back ability.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that that's what I really want to see built in schools is capacity for children to take risk and fail
Mm.
and see that you could bounce back and build that idea stronger and it turns into an
Yeah.
invention that saves the planet, right?
Yeah.
So where are we building? We're keeping too narrow of a range of perfection, of excellence, of safety, and it's not giving us the flexibility that we need to really survive in the wild.
Yeah. Yeah. I love, oh my gosh, I love that. It's like a TED talk right there at the ending. I'm just like, yeah, I felt it. I'm like, it's nervous system flexibility, safe enough, and that trying to do our best to create an environment, and it's communal, like you said, this communal environment that we're all doing this together. We're all aware. We're better because again, the great connector is the nervous system. Is if I'm
Mm-hmm.
aware of this, then no wonder why you kept saying the amygdala, the novelty can be a mobilizing threat to the nervous system. If everything every day I come into an environment and it's a different culture, different thing, then for me, if I'm the different culture, it's going to feel unfamiliar and not safe because I'm constantly having to
Mm-hmm.
learn something new, and that could be taxing. But if we're
Mm-hmm.
aware of this, the great nervous system regulator, if we have this perspective, this broad perspective, then we are creating environments, and that's what you're doing to help facilitate this communal connection, communal safe enough, communal flexibility, adaptability, kind of allowing everyone to build on their strengths
Mm-hmm.
and helping each other because now we're aware, like Timmy knows what Jill's going through because he's aware that she has a different level of need than he does, and he could
Mm-hmm.
tune into that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus like, ooh, something's weird with her because she's got to spin on a chair.
Right.
It's normalized. This is just what we
Mm-hmm.
do, and we're all different, and we're all supporting, and because of that, we can adapt, and we can deal with failure, and we can have the resiliency because we've done practice enough growing up from child, all the way up
Mm-hmm.
of these practices. And also the second part of this is that, well, we also need environments that are aware of this because I think, and I'm just saying this, I think there's also environments that just create more pain, trauma, stress that
Absolutely.
keeps people stuck. And so I think it's a both and. It's like both.
Mm-hmm.
We need both. We need to address and create better systems and then go over here. So that's that connector of the nervous system of polyvagal
Absolutely.
theory. And I think the work you're doing is so important and needed big time. And so be conscious of the time. I'm wondering if people wanted to check what Dr. Nikki's about to get some
Mm-hmm.
support or take a training, where would they find that? Where would they go?
Yes. So I am, again, the director of SEEN, which is the Center for Embodied Equity and Neurodiversity at the University of San Diego Souls. So if you visit our website for University of San Diego and then look for SEEN, CEEN, we have there the listing for the Heart Center Connection certificate. Our next open certificate will be in the fall, in October of this year. So I think next week we'll start taking registrations for that next one. And then I'm also the founder of the Mindful Leaders Project. So there we host retreats and different speaking engagements for adults. So that work is for the leaders. So I'm concerned about the adult nervous system capacity in service to children who are neurodiverse. And so that is mindful-leaders.org, just to learn more about the work that we do. I also love supporting empathic leaders, so people who have sensitive nervous systems that feel like they absorb the energetics of the people that they serve. So we do a lot of mind-body work in support of that. But it would be a pleasure to continue bringing this awareness to any organization. We work within the foster care community, starting to move into the juvenile justice space to help reframe the beliefs and the ways that those children are being viewed and assessed, as well as all levels of education and the community-based learning space as well. Before and after school programs, summer camps, we've started providing training for summer camp providers because, again, a lot of times they're bringing in students from college students and high school students to run summer camps, and they do not have the awareness that's needed to be inclusive of neurodiverse students in those spaces.
Yeah, I love that. And those that are listening, the links will be in the description. Click on to find all the work that Dr. Nikki's doing. And I thank you so much for your time today and just really bless the work that you're doing. So I thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be with you, Travis.
Bye.